Good morning, I'm Darren Wells, the Senior Content Manager at Mumbrella, and welcome to the session right now for the Mumbrella Automotive Marketing Virtual Summit, The Big Squeeze, Extracting Growth in a Declining Market. Please welcome to your screens for this session the Planning Director of Orchard, Michaela Crimmins, and the Director of Marketing for Hyundai Motor Company Australia, Kevin Gould.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks, Minnie. That was a great presentation. Makes me want to cut some shapes on the old dance floor. So, big squeeze. I promise you, this is not going to be about myself trying to squeeze into some jeans on a summer's hot day. But instead, what Kevin and I thought we wanted to talk about today was actually just address some of the challenges that we're facing, and then start to look at what are the things that we're really optimistic about. So, my name is Michaela Crimmins. I'm Planning Director at Orchard, which is a digital agency on behalf of Hyundai. I'm going to look outside of the category. I'm going to look to adjacent categories that are, facing similar challenges that we are. And then Kevin Gould, the Director of Marketing for Hyundai, is going to look internally to what the automotive category is currently doing and where we are looking for, for optimism and hope in what is otherwise quite a challenging category.
I think first things first, so let's just address the elephant in the room. No matter how good the automotive category is and how hard we're working, and the technological advancements that we're making, the changes in alternative energy sources, we're going from petrol to diesel to electrification into hybrid and then into hydrogen. It's just still an uphill battle. And to be honest, it's never been a tougher time to be in auto right now. And it's tough. It really, really is tough. We've reached a peak car saturation point in the wealthier countries. So, for example, we're seeing fewer Australians replacing their second car. There is an increase in ride shares. And those rideshare sharing platforms. So, of course, we've got that as a challenge that happens. And in April, we saw a decline in the car market, 48% roughly, a drop in demand for new cars. Now, before COVID, of course, it was at about 9%. So we've seen that significant hit. And then, of course, the mobility in the market has been significantly reduced or has shrunk because of the pandemic and coronavirus. So we've got about 60% of Australians who aren't travelling as much as before. So, look, it's never been a tougher time, but also it's never been a more exciting time to be in this environment for sure.
And I guess if that wasn't tough enough, when people are in the car market today, it's even shorter than ever. We look at stats around, path to purchase. It used to be 4.7 months. It's 2.3. It used to take 69 days to shortlist a car. It's down to 21. People on average used to visit, 4 dealerships. It's now down to 1.8. And then we think about, the vast amount of brands that are really in Australia. For a population of 22 million, we've got, almost 60 brands. And what that means is, we've got a short amount of time to actually engage with these prospects. So what a tough time, we've got less people driving, a stronger path to purchase, but we've got more choice. So, with all of those challenges, and it is challenging, let's face it, I thought I might, inject a little bit of optimism and use this gentleman to inspire us. So this gentleman's name is Eliud Kipchoge. Now, he did what, was inconceivable, no one thought was possible. He ran the marathon in under 2 hours. Frankly, incredible. But there was a whole bunch of things that people didn't see that went on behind the scenes. He wore the Nike Vaporfly prototype. This was an incredible sneaker that was proven to increase performance by 4%. Incredible. I wish I had one of these. Then he was flanked by 40 pace setters. Now, these weren't any ordinary pace setters from the Baywattle run. These pace setters were all marathon runners, and they made sure that he never went below the 4-minute 31 mark. Incredible. And now, if that wasn't enough, and that wasn't enough of a competitive advantage, he then also had a vehicle that drove in front of him with a green laser beam projected on the ground, which made sure that he never deviated or wasted time or effort. The shortest route to get onto that 2 hours. So, why did I go on a little bit of a tangent there? I guess the reason why I've, shared that story is that in 2020, great doesn't happen by accident. And in fact, we've got so many different levers to pull, whether it be communications, technology, data, that can give us an unfair competitive advantage, which is, what we're desperately seeking. But what that means for us is, channel our Brad Pitt and Moneyball is we absolutely need to evolve.
100%. And if you look at it, we've got to adapt to our environment, okay? And what we've been working in is our category. We're constrained by this metaphorical straitjacket. We really are doing the same things over and over again. Now, that's just inherent by design of the automotive industry. It's what we do. We sell cars. It's very traditional. But we're at that pivotal moment now where the cars themselves have outpaced the way that we market them. So you could argue the fact that the car is probably about 10 years ahead technologically, advancement terms, but our marketing is still behind. So what we have to do is fast track where we go from the marketing, the way we communicate, the way we reach out to our customers, and the way we actually engage with them. That's probably the single biggest thing there. So one thing that we've learned through COVID and through the pandemic is the fact that we have to adapt, and we've fast tracked it really. We've actually got through the process where we've got online buying, we've got online selling, of course, we've got test drive videos, and we've made that virtual showroom environment very, very quickly. So the things that once constrained us, we've actually used to our advantage. Now, there's also a challenger here that I don't think anybody will be surprised to hear, but Tesla has really shaped up the market, right? They came in, they didn't have a rule book. They didn't have the same issue as what we did, that we've probably challenged or kept the convention going exactly the same way. So Tesla came in, they hit the market very hard, and then they hit it in an entirely different way. So, of course, we had to adapt to that. But, of course, because they didn't have a rule book, it enabled them to play. But how that spurred us on has been absolutely phenomenal in terms of our next step forwards.
So with that said, and, Tesla giving us a bit of a proverbial kick up the bum, we're going to, tear out the rule book today and actually start to think about how we want to market differently or evolve as a category. So today, rules are for fools, tear up that rule book. Our first thought that we wanted to share was shift the understanding of a category in order to win it. Now, this is not art. In fact, this is the Samsung Frame TV. And a bit like our category in the automotive space, Samsung realised in 2016 that they were declining on sales by 6% year on year, and they couldn't quite understand why that was the case. Subscription TV, had grown at an astronomical rate, but for some reason, people were preferring to watch these shows on a smaller screen. So they undertook a research project to understand how had the role of the TV evolved over time, and what role did it essentially play. And what they realised was that people wanted their TV to be invisible. They didn't want it to be the focal point. And instead, the TV had changed from a piece of technology to actually a piece of furniture. And thus, the Samsung designers realised that in order for the TV to still maintain a pivotal role and to, if not increase sales, they had to change the way that the TV showed up in the lives of, everyday people. And thus they created the Art Series TV, which meant that it was art when the TV was off and entertainment when the TV was on. And funnily enough, it actually increased sales of TVs because it became a focal point. It was a piece of art.
100%. And I think this is one of the things we've got to look at into the category, okay? So people's perception of the car has changed, okay? What people do in their car is completely different to what it was before. So if you think about it, our vehicle was once a cocoon. We felt quite safe in it. You could pick your nose in it and not worry, right? So I think in that regard, we sort of kind of shut ourselves off from the world outside. But now what we want is our vehicle is, we are so much more demanding of what our car is and what it does. We want new experiences in our product. We want new connectivity. And we're not just along for the ride now, we're along for that interaction piece. So we're at that inflection point where the electronics and the software will displace some of the mechanical hardware that we actually have in our car. So our vehicle still has the valuable components, but we've got things like the safety systems, we've got the evolution of our engines and efficiency. But design, whilst we've still got beautiful cars, it almost feels like that's no longer the thing that people work towards. Now, when I say that, and the way I link that is that drivers just don't want to be unplugged anymore. So we take example, the time it takes to make a cup of coffee, people feel uncomfortable with being disconnected from the world, right? They feel disconnected from they feel uncomfortable from being disconnected from each other. And why? That's because connectivity with each other around the world almost feels akin to the way we have water and clothing. And I just want to put that into a bit of perspective here. And this is why the car has to evolve so much more. So if you think about the fact there are now more phones in the planet than people, now that's quite a lot of phones. Now, then you take a 20-year-old. So a 20-year-old will expect a lot more out of their product. Their consumption of their product is going to be a lot different. They send over 2,000 messages a month, and then they share statuses of upwards of 500 friends. So all of a sudden, you've got this constant communication, this constant on, which is why the car has the Android and the Apple CarPlay, that ultimate in connectivity. And then I add on top of that, there's about 3 million different apps available for people to use. So what we've got to do now in the auto industry is move away from a vision that's not just about moving us from point A to B, but changing us the same time as the world changes. And when I talk about time, let's have a quick look at why we do so much connectivity. Now, time is a precious commodity. We can't give you more. I can only give you 24 hours in a day. It's not what you got, it's what you do with it. And that's what really, really matters. And that's also where time memories are formed. And we actually make sure that we get the most out of our day all the time, but we always want more time. So for us, this is about moving beyond things like performance, technology, and aesthetics. Beautiful cars, well-designed, 0 to 100 so quick. But what we need to do is we want to give people the gift of time well spent. So when you spend your time in your car, it's no longer idle time. It's not non-productive time. It has to be something that, and we at Hyundai are doing this. I've got some very clever engineers pushing forward, but we want to reinvent the way that you consume your 24 hours. We want to give this quality time to the future of our mobility. So we want to connect people with quality time. But also what's important here is, and it's quite topical with working from home, WFH, everybody's done it. But what about working from the car? And we can see this evolution through autonomous driving or the autonomous tech, that eventually there's going to come a time when you can use that time in your vehicle so productively that it's your time. You're winning more time in your 24 hours. And therefore, when you get home, you enjoy your family time. So what we're doing with Hyundai as a car company, our engineers are cleverly working away as to how to maximize that time inside your car. Now, the other thing we obviously want to do, it's about entertainment. We all sit in a car, we all sit in the traffic, particularly if you're in Sydney, you'll sit in traffic and you want to maximize what you do. Now, there is a way to maximize what you actually have as a car journey to make it more enjoyable. So there's the connectivity. So the ride is more comfortable. When we talk about this, we've got some new products which are incredibly comfortable, but it's also about being connected. So our car is the Wi-Fi hotspot. The car has this ultimate connectivity and just keeps us moving forward. So it's not just for the driver anymore, it's also about the passengers. And that's really what we're focusing on here with our most exciting model launches. So Hyundai's got 18 new models coming up in 18 months or less. And that's what we're focusing on for Australia. So our products are designed to help Australians spend their time more wisely. So brand differentiation is most definitely the future in terms of what we're going to do, how we position ourselves, and how we use the features of our car. So things like GPS, driver assistance, safety features, they're one of the same thing, and it's almost a given. So what we're doing is thinking a bit more laterally, and how can we use tech more interestingly, and how can we modernize where our brand is? So really, it's a case of what can I do in my car? Can I learn a new language, for example? How can I interact with my car on a track and actually start to get some track time, some data, some real-time data about me, how my heart beats when I'm driving and driving fast. But this evolution of tech doesn't stop with just that connectivity. What you see here on the car is our concept. It's a beautifully designed car. This is prophecy. So this is an all-electric vehicle. Now, one thing I want to just point out is concept is very much closer to reality than what it used to be with the car industry. This feels like something that's very real. Now, when I talk about convenience, one of the things here we're looking at is the fact that the time it takes to charge this car could be the same time it takes for you to fuel your car with petrol or diesel. Incredible. That's a pretty amazing feat, right? And I think that's something that we're really working hard on. Now, granted, the size of the cable that would need to go into the side of the car is probably that sort of diameter, so it's a fairly large cable, but it's possible, and it's entirely possible. But what are our implications for marketing, right? We focus on through the lens of demand, our needs, our desires, what we really want, and the experiences. Now, this is really important, of course, but what we're doing is selling what it is. We're selling the fact it's a car made of metal, with glass, with wheels, with tires. That's what we're selling. Now, what we need to move into, and this is what we're doing at Hyundai, is we're moving much, much further forward to sell what it does. So it's about how practical it is. It's about what it does to meet your requirements. In other words, this is useful tech inside the Hyundai product. And then, actually, this is quite strange. It requires more time to do that. And interestingly, if we sell what it does, it means we have to have that explanation of how it works.
Which gets us to our second thought, which is about don't kill sacred cows. Let's reframe them. So we know there's 3,500 dealerships within Australia, and they play an incredibly important role. So let's evolve the way we see these dealerships and the role that they can play. Now, I use Canon as a great example. So Canon a bit like the auto category, within these cameras, the technology is accelerated incredibly. But with that, it requires more time to actually explain what these, cameras are, are capable of. And the problem with Canon cameras is they largely sit behind glass and the likes of JB and Harvey Norman. And you can't explain and you can't demonstrate. And what they realized was they needed to allow people to play, hands-on experience, and actually understand how that camera plays a role in their life. Thus, they created the experience centers. And this was all about using brand ambassadors to demonstrate the product.
That's really important. How does this relate to our category? Okay, so car owners don't know what they're not shown. And it's a really interesting thing. So the new vehicle handover, it's about 51 minutes. During that period of time, about 44% of those people think they need to know more about the car and the settings and how it uses. So about 40% are left not knowing the full function of their car. This is really hard, right? We've got tech and experience, which is why we need to talk and explain this in the car dealership. So the dealership has never been more important. So when you look at that then further, only a third of people will ask more questions about these automotive categories. So really, this is where the dealer is of the most important time. So our cars are becoming more complex. Think of a customer. They know one product, they know what they want, they know the color, they know the features. Think of a car sales consultant. They've got to remember all the products, all the features. So the in-dealer experience has really got to be heightened to lift that. So our dealerships have got to make the demonstration feel very, very simple.
So how do we do this? For us as the digital agency, it's about one thing and one thing only. It's about attention. Two things become important. How are we going to save attention and how are we going to seize attention? And what are the moments that we're going to do that? And why does this become important? Because we know that the customer is only in the market, just as regularly as, the Wallabies win the Bledisloe, which is roughly every 8.1 years. So we need to be really critical of what are those moments where we're going to be the most meaningful and have the most memory. Saving attention is about seamless, friction-free, quick, efficient experiences, but they're not memorable. Seizing attention are those moments which are memorable, unforgettable, and where you actually start to preference the brand. And that's everything from discovery to switching on the end performance and hearing the crackle and the pop of the engine. And what that means is that you need to map out the entire customer journey and identify the moments which are most important. So for us, from a marketing perspective, it's really simple. It's reframing the way that we market to our customers, from focusing on deals, which is incredibly important, but moving it to feels, because we know that when emotion is used and emotion is elicited amongst our customers, that people are more likely to preference, remember, and recall our brand, and it's a more valuable experience. And in the essence of time, I'm going to go quickly through our third thought, which is there are no ad-shaped problems anymore. And I borrowed this from Martin Weigel and Rob Campbell. And it's incredibly important when we talk about 2020 and marketing in this day and age. So, it's quite incredible to think that, houses are being bought sight unseen. And the reason that they are being sight unseen in the COVID era is that technology has eliminated both the effort, but it's restored trust in these experiences. And that's really key to what we have to do, right? Is it's just all about trust. And you can build trust both online and offline. And we look at some of the challenges that, our, trusted clients give us. None of these rely on communications as the sole lever to pull. And so that becomes a really interesting space for us as partners, is how can we solve that problem with a different shaped idea? So for us, there's two things that become really important. And Raymond Loewy, the industrial designer, he really coined this, and he said it's about being equal parts fresh and equal parts familiar. What that means is we've got, neophiles that love curiosity and new things, but then we have neophobes, which are really scared of anything new. So when we're innovating and creating new experiences, there's got to be an element that's fresh and interesting, but there's got to be a part that makes them feel safe.
Absolutely. So really, this was all about the experience of the car dealership, okay? And that's why we're doing what we're doing. So we bring customers to that more proximate experience that we actually have. So we've built virtual reality of the cars, or AR of the cars, and that's during the coronavirus period and this pandemic. That's what we've all had to do, and it's working. We've had in excess of 1,300 configurations of cars in a very short period of time, less than 3 weeks. So you start to see that this engagement, and the market is ready for that. So who'd have thought you'd have bought a car online? Who'd have thought you'd have made those decisions just as per your real estate example? But there's one part of the automotive industry that's being really affected, used cars. Yeah. This is so exciting. It's such a good way to look at what's going on because it's being disrupted. It's one of our last legacies to be disruptive. So look at a Carvana. Like, this is basically a giant vending machine of used cars. It's really, really cool. In fact, it's that cool, you almost get a giant coin to buy the car that's in there. And it's very, very clever. But the confidence that this has created the market, it's really cool. So you sit your car in this 360-degree photography studio, you get all the details about what your car is, what the product is, and then you have the confidence to go and buy it. It's really cool, but the dealer is still super important. And I think that's the thing. We mustn't forget that car dealerships hold an enormous amount of credibility in the market, because you can still talk to somebody even if you're buying a used car.
You still got that familiar element, right?
100%.
Yeah.
You've still got to feel comfortable that you're buying something, and sometimes it's just nice to talk to people.
So what does it mean for us is, in the past, trust was completely earned through comms, but what we're starting to realize is that trust is really now built on experience, whether that be a digital experience or whether that actually be in the dealership and the role that they can play. So our second last thought for today is all about don't hide from your heritage. What this means is, interestingly enough, in Australia, we've got a bunch of global brands, but somehow feel quite proximate and local. We think of the likes of Coca-Cola, Aldi, Cadbury. Why is it that they feel proximate and local to us? The reason why is they've attached themselves to a universal truth and they've expressed that in a local way. And in some regards, it's almost as if global brands see us as Australians better than we see ourselves. We're a very self-conscious bunch. But how does that relate then to Hyundai?
Well, it's really interesting, because one of the things we've got here, and there's a bit of a mantra, we're not afraid of our heritage. We're very proud of being Korean. But to make sure we fit in the market, we're distinctively Korean and uniquely Australian. So by that, what I mean is we embrace and we recognize and we understand our heritage, but we also understand the importance we have in our homegrown market. And it starts with the product for us. So at Hyundai, we design and engineer cars in Korea, but we've got some very clever engineers here in Australia that tune the suspension locally on the product. So firstly, we start with the product. It's made for local environment, which is exactly what we want it to be. It's developed here to some extent. Also, we're then part of our sponsorships, and we're ingrained in some of these key activities and these key sponsorships. So our commitment to where that goes, but also what's good is the bravery at grassroots level. So we back the fearless. Laura Enever, big wave surfer, she's one of our ambassadors here for Hyundai. Absolutely fantastic. It's a real true strength of what our brand stands for, because we are a fearless brand. But then, of course, we don't forget our grassroots. Hyundai Help for Kids, we give back to Australia. So we really get under the skin from many layers of how it is. It's our product, it's our sponsorships, and then, of course, it's giving back. But then importantly, really what we want to try and focus on here is actually make sure that we don't hide from our origins. You'd have heard this earlier today in some of the other presentations. Don't hide from your origins. Be proud of where we are. Distinctively Korean, uniquely Australian. That's exactly where we want to be positioning ourselves. And then we connect the shared values, exactly what we do with our sponsorships and how we move forward.
Now, to round us out, a final thought, and we're going to come full circle, which is sell the moonshot, but make sure you land. So at the start, it's really easy to look at Tesla and be really inspired by the ambition that they're setting. But let's also be honest. The one thing that, we have going for us within the automotive category is we've always had a strong commitment to delivery. We don't just make promises, but, more importantly, we keep those promises. And I think, from an agency side and a marketing and a technology perspective, but also from a product side, we're absolutely, catching up to these guys, if not surpassing them. We've got better products, better technology. We're delivering in a, more unique way. But we're also not hiding from who we are and what we do well. And so I think, if we leave that, as a parting thought, is that, we've got the products that are ambitious and inspiration. Now we can just, reimagine what we do with it. So to bring us back, how are we going to get onto that 2-hour marathon mark? I leave the final thought with you, Kevin. What are you most optimistic, or what excites you about marketing in this category with 30 years experience under your belt?
Well, I think first, there's never been a better time to adapt. Also, look at all of your surroundings. But I've seen the evolution of petrol and diesel and, electrification. We've got hydrogen vehicles coming into play now. So we've got the next. So it's a hydrogen car available in Australia now. Hyundai is pioneering this hydrogen technology. So it's great. So what I'm looking forward to is now that marketing is catching up. You'll hear car sales consultants always say, never been a better time to buy a car. Well, to be quite honest, there's never been a better time to be marketing and advertising cars, to be fair. the technology that we've got around us to actually promote our product is fantastic. It's phenomenal, and it's really exciting and engaging. So I'm looking forward to bringing to life and adapting to the surroundings, just as we have here with our marathon runner. Find the best way forward using the information that we've got around us to deliver something great for our industry. I'm really looking forward to it for that and for Hyundai, to be honest.
Love it. Back to you, Damien.
Thank you, Michaela and Kevin. Great insights and certainly a lot to unpack. We do have time for a few quick questions. One thing that I would like to know more about is you mentioned the push for technology. It's a very tech-driven industry now. How do you balance the increase of technology in cars against using cars as a portal to escape, to get away? We're being increasingly connected these days.
Oh, it's kind of one and the same thing, I think. I mean, that portal for escapism, we've talked about it being that third space. It is that third environment that very much you've got. So I think really there is no differentiation. It sort of blurs, because what you can do in your car, you can do at home. You can watch Netflix in your car. You can, send emails, type messages. It's text to voice. I think actually those lines have become so blurred. It just feels like it's commonplace now. So, the advancement of that technology that we have has really enabled us to open up that door. So I'd actually almost say that cocoon where you could once sit in the car and pick your nose, thinking nobody can watch. Actually, I think that's no longer the case. You are just connected all the time, everywhere you go. And it's to the benefit of the consumer, because you win back some time. You win back an extra bit of time within your 24 hours. We don't give you more time, we just make it more useful for you.
Yeah. And I think we're going to reach an inflection point where actually we'll probably stop talking about the technology and it'll become invisible. And it then becomes all of the memories that are created within these vehicles, or what we can do, what it enables, which will become more of the focus.
That's expected. I think just like ABS and an airbag and safety systems, it's just going to become the expected thing. It's that item that you expect it will do it for you. And I think that's what's going to happen in the car industry. People will buy cars and their expectation is the tech is there and it's there for them to use no matter what. They don't have to ask for it because it's already built in. And that's where clever engineers come into, and that's most certainly what we've got at Hyundai.
Well, I'm afraid we do have to wrap things up there. We do have some more questions, but unfortunately that's all the time we have at the moment. Perhaps our guests can pass them on to you outside of this session, but we will move on. Thank you again for your insights. To view to the next session, hit that Back to Timeline button in the top left-hand corner of the screen. The next one is a brand's perspective on agency change, the process of GPC's media agency shift. We'll see you there as we thank Michaela and Kevin. Thank you.